Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm your host, Alex from Be the Trader, and today I want to go over Chapter 2 of Trading in the Zone, the lures and the dangers of them. So let's get started, and don't forget, hit that like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified for more videos like this. And keep in mind, this is to give you an idea, should you read this book, or do you even need to, because you're going to get some good value from this quick video. Thanks. So at the beginning of the chapter, Mark Douglas starts to talk about how we act as kids when we're born. We're born with this innate ability or this innate thought of curiosity. Like, we constantly are curious. We're always like, what is this thing that we want to touch? What is this? What is that? We're growing, we're adapting, and we're evolving. And one thing he points out is, as kids, we've all been here where we see something that we want to touch, and then we hear, hey, don't touch that. Don't go to that. That's bad. Don't do this. You can burn yourself. If you break that, that's valuable. Whatever it is. And he talks about how it's a loose rule of thumb that whatever we are deprived of as children can become an addiction in the future. And it's a vacuum kind of idea that nature doesn't like vacuums. If there's ever a vacuum, it will be filled, right? Like if there's an open area within your heart or whatever you're looking to fulfill and it's not being fulfilled, you will find a way how to fulfill it. So that is the first thing that he wants you to recognize and understand, that is what makes it very difficult for a lot of traders to stay disciplined and to make sure that they are consistent in their trading. So he starts by talking about how we need to install safeguards. And he talks about structure. And the reason he talks about structure is because in society, we're given structure, right? We have rules. We know what we can and cannot do. And we know if we cross that stop sign without stopping, we have a chance of losing our life. We know that if we do something illegal, we have a chance to be incarcerated for years. Right? So there's structure in society that keeps us in line, right? At your job, within your relationship, with your friends, you all have these structures. There's the big structure in society, then there's the micro structures in your relationships and so forth. So he talks about how we have this throughout life, but when it comes to trading, we don't have any of this, right? That is what really draws a lot of people, is that we have full freedom to do what we want to do, to make what we want to make happen, and to make what we don't want to make actually happen too, right? Like if you have fears, anxiety, you will make those things happen as well. So this freedom of no structure is something we're not used to, right? We're used to being said no, to say you can't do this. And so when we get that freedom to do whatever we want, it's very hard as a trader to realize that you must force and create your own structure in order to be consistently profitable. And that's something that's really hard as a trader to understand, because we see this realm of possibilities, right? We know as traders, there's consistently multiple hundreds of possibilities to place a trade. And because of that, we feel like we're missing out. All of these fears come in and we don't adhere to structure, right? We just trade willy-nilly. And it isn't until you've been trading for a long time. I mean, it's taken me many years, about 3.5 years, for me to understand that I need structure to be profitable. And he talks about the in-depth that you need to create structure, which is the complete opposite that you want, right? The whole reason you're leaving or you want to do trading is because you want freedom. But we're saying, here's the freedom. Now you need to create rules around that freedom, right? It's so different. Like, it doesn't make sense, but you need to do that in order to be successful. The reason we need structure, and he goes into an example about gambling. I mean, in trading, there is no beginning, middle, and end. And you're probably like, what do you mean? I mean, of course there's a beginning. I place a trade, right? And then I watch the trade, and then I get out of the trade. No. Let me put it in perspective for you. In gambling, let's say blackjack, right? In blackjack, you have to consciously decide, I'm going to risk X amount of dollars on this hand. And then once you decide, you made your beginning, you've decided, and now you have to wait until the game is played out, and then you lose, right? You literally are in a structured game where you bet and you can't get out in the middle of your bet until the end, and then you lose or you win, right? And you have to consciously decide to continue to lose. And what I mean by that is, if you lose a hand and you want to play the next hand, you have to decide, okay, I'm willing to bet again, and I have to go through this whole process because I can't get out before my bet is over. I can't take half my bet back, right? You can't do that at a casino, or you'll just get kicked out, or they'll take all your money. Like, you just can't do that. So you have to wait until the end. So you're actively participating in losing, right? You have to consciously decide, I've been losing 3 times. I'm going to bet again because I'm willing to lose again. Like, that structure, right? It's there for you in blackjack, in all types of gambling. If you go to bet on horses, you bet for a horse to win. You can't just say, oh, I'm pulling my bet in the middle of the race. You just can't do that, right? You got to wait until the end. And then you got to decide whether you win or lose to do it again. Whereas in trading, it's not like that. There's no structure. So you can place a trade whenever you want. And when you place a trade, you can never get out because you don't decide, right? Like, you could stay in it forever and it could continue to go against you forever, right? It could continue to go against you, and you can lose more than you thought you wanted to lose. And unless you have structure, going back to the beginning, unless you have structure, you have rules in place, you will lose everything, right? You will continue to lose, and you can be a loser from the beginning of that trade till indefinitely, until you run out of money because you decide not to exit it. And that's a problem, because many traders have that hold and hope mentality where we're like, you know what, I'm going to buy this and I think it's going to go to the moon, right? And then it continues to drop and they're like, oh, if it comes back to where I entered, I'll get out then. And it bounces a little bit and then continues further. They're like, oh, I should have got out on that last bounce, but I'll wait for this. And then you just continue to hold. And since there's no ending to a trade until you make the decision, right? You have to consciously decide to end the game. You have to consciously decide to start the game. It's completely different. That you're going to continue to lose, and you can lose big. So you need to understand that it's important for you to know that this is why you need structure. This is why you need to build rules, and you need to have these because they're in there to protect you. If you don't have them, look, let me give you an example. When I first started trading, I think it was one of my first trades. Now, I had a great job at the time. I was making good money, so it didn't really affect me. But I placed a trade, and I think in like 2 to 3 minutes, if you listen to Be the Trader show, I actually talk about this in detail. But about 2 to 3 minutes, I lost like, I think 6 to 8 grand in 2 to 3 minutes. Like, it was like instantly. And if I wouldn't have gotten out at that moment, that could have been disaster. Like, it could have been way worse. Right? If I would have been, it's easy to slip in that deer in the headlights moment where you're just like, and you have no idea, like, oh my gosh, should I get in? Should I get out? Should I hold? I'm down so much. What if it comes back? And you start to think all of these things. And that happens when you don't have rules. When you're not like, if I get in at this price, then I only get out when this happens or this. There is no in between. Like, if it hits a certain level, I'm out. And you need to stick to that or you'll lose it all. And you can lose everything. The biggest problem to this, right, to this whole idea of creating safeguards, structure, is our unwillingness to create rules. Now, you might be hearing this and saying, you know what? I get it. I'm going to create rules. And creating rules, like, the unwillingness to create rules isn't like very abrupt. Like, I'm not going to create rules, because most people get it. They understand when they hear this, when they talk to me on the show or we discuss their challenges, they understand, like, oh my gosh, like, I need to create rules. I need to do this. But it's very subtle, that the unwillingness to actually adhere to those rules. Because at the beginning, remember, when there's a vacuum, you're going to want to fulfill it. Whenever you maybe were deprived of doing X, Y, Z, you want to feel that. When you have all these emotions tied, you want to fix that. You want to, I want that rush. I want that excitement. I want the freedom to do whatever I want, because I can't do that in my current 9 to 5. Like, you need to create structure. So you don't have to completely fix how you feel in the past and what happened. But you do need to acknowledge that you need these rules and you need to stick to these rules. And you need to know that it's very easy for you to slip, right? To slip against these rules. And the more you recognize this, maybe it's going to take you a lot of losses like it did me. Maybe it's going to take you just to hear this once. And I hope it does, because if it does, man, that'll be amazing. You're going to save a huge headache. But most of us are going to lose a lot even after hearing this. We're going to still make those mistakes. But acknowledge that every time you do and figure out the reason behind it. And more times than not, the reason we lose is not because of the market. It's not because of some random dude on the internet. It's because you. It's all because of you. It's you versus you. You're the reason you lost. You're the reason. Take responsibility. That's a huge part that traders do not see and they don't understand and they don't accept. And the other part is they talk about, in near the end of this chapter, he talks about the idea of you're in a world where everything is freedom, but now we have to put all those restrictions, which I've kind of talked about already, but that is something that you really need to recognize and pay attention to, that structure. The reason we have structure in society, the reason structure in everything we do is because it helps things move along, right? It helps you stay safe. And this will help you stay safe in trading as well. So you gotta really listen to this and re-listen to this whole chapter again if you're missing it, because this is very important to help you be successful. And the last thing I do want to mention before wrapping it up is the idea of random results. If you don't have these rules, if we don't have the structure, you will get random results. You're going to be everywhere. You'll make money, you'll lose money, you'll make money, you'll lose money, you'll make money, you'll lose money. And that randomness, there's been studies with chimpanzees. I know we're not monkeys, but the idea is they showed different studies where if they give a chimpanzee every time he did a certain action, it wasn't random, right? Every time he did a certain action, he always got a treat, right? And when that happened, when they took away the treat every time he did the action, the next time he was like, well, what the hell's going on? Then he did it again. He said, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. But to the chimpanzees that every time it was just random, like they gave him a treat, then he wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting around. It's like, okay, well, awesome. Like, I'm excited. Like, that's just surprising. And then they did an action. They gave him a treat. And then he did an action. They did nothing. And then out of nowhere, they gave him a random treat out of nowhere. And that randomness gave him this euphoria, right? This dopamine where he's just excited. And that is an addiction. Like, they recognize that the monkey who didn't know that randomness was happening, like every time he hit the button, he wasn't going to get something. He just hit it and be like, okay, I'll just keep hitting it because they're just giving me random treats. Like, I don't know when it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. Like, he kept hitting it. But the other monkey was only hitting it when he was getting consistency. And the moment it didn't work, he stopped hitting the button. That's trading. The moment something doesn't work, you need to recognize that and stop doing that. That randomness is going to keep you addicted where you're not going to be consistent. You're going to be like this. That's your profits. You're going to be up, down, up, down, up, down, over and over. And I've been there for many years. Actually, it took about 2 years. I was stuck there. I was in that roller coaster. And this is a takeaway. You need to understand, you need structure because you don't want randomness. It's easy to get addicted to. And it's also easy to make excuses. Like, I was right because I made a good decision. I was wrong because, I didn't do XYZ, or because I listened to someone, or because I heard something. Like, you can make excuses, but if you have structure, you can't. You literally have to say, I'm wrong because I'm wrong. Like, I made a decision based off my rules and they were wrong. I'm wrong. You got to be willing to accept that. I hope you enjoy this review of Chapter 2 of The Lures and the Dangers of Trading by Mark Douglas and Trading in the Zone. Again, I'm your host, Alex from Be The Trader. And if you do enjoy this type of content, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you're notified when more videos like this come. Thanks.